Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session. My name is Katarina ROLFSDOTTER-JANSSON. I am a journalist, moderator, and innovator from Malmö, Sweden. Malmö was just elected the 4th most innovative city in the world, actually. Very proud of that. Thank you. This session that I have the pleasure of moderating is about the young generation, Generation Z, and the possibility of this generation becoming the innovative generation, innovation generation. We will listen to young geniuses that will present their very, very fascinating and strong inventions. And they are in the fields of ICT, medicine, and chemistry. Together with the Commissioner, GEOGHEGAN-QUINN, they will discuss the possibility of getting more interest in the young generation for entrepreneurship and science. At the end of this session, I will take questions from the audience, and you also have the possibility of sending in questions via Twitter. And I think there is enough seats for everybody. Otherwise, this session will also be live streamed from the Silver Hall. I will now introduce one speaker at a time, of course, starting with the Commissioner. GEOGHEGAN-QUINN. She's been the European Commissioner for Research, Innovation and Science since 2010. Member of the Irish Parliament for many years, held various ministerial posts, among them the European Union Minister. So please give a warm hand to GEOGHEGAN-QUINN. Please come up on stage. Great to have you with us. And please take a seat. And you will be joined by the younger generation here. The next speaker on stage is Jordan Casey. Jordan is only 14 years old, and he's a self-taught programmer. He started programming at the age of 9 already. And since 2012, Jordan has founded 2 companies and launched a successful career as a speaker. Please give Jordan Casey a warm applause. Great to have you with us, Jordan. Please take a seat. Jack ANDRAKA. At the age of 15, he invented a cancer detector. A paper that can detect ovarian, lung, and pancreatic cancer in less than 5 minutes for less than 3 cents. Amazing. Jack ANDRAKA was the guest of Mrs. Obama at the State of the Union address. He has received an award from President Obama, named Champion of Change. And Jack ANDRAKA has been featured in many prestigious television shows, such as 60 Minutes and BBC with Diane Sawyer. So please give Jack ANDRAKA a warm applause. Great to have you here. Now from Spain, Alberto ELIAS. He's a co-founder of Holalabs, an organizer of GDC Murcia. Jack is an Android and web developer, and you have experience in both back-end and front-end web development. And you are, Alberto is also junior young advisor to the Vice President of the European Commission. So please come up on stage, Alberto ELIAS. Great to have you. We do not only work as solitaires, we work together. We have now a group of young ladies that are a very strong team together. Sophie HEALY-THOW, Ciara Judge, and Emer Hickey from Ireland. And this trio have used natural bacteria to speed up the germination and also subsequently the growth of cereal crops. So please come up on stage, these fantastic girls from Ireland. Welcome. seat. And last but not least, Elif BILGIN from Turkey. It's great we have so many nationalities represented here. There's a great challenge with plastic in the world, and Elif, just quite young still, has taken on this challenge. Last year, she entered the Google Science Fair with a project Going Bananas, using banana peels to replace traditional petroleum-based plastic. And she came in among the 15 finalists representing Turkey. Won the prize, the Scientific American Magazine's Science in Action Award, and the Voters' Choice Award. So please come up on stage, Elif BILGIN from Turkey. Great to have you. We will now listen to presentations from this young group. And you can either stand up or sit down if you'd like. Let's start with Jordan. Give a short introduction. And you'll have this hand microphone. Here you go.
Thanks. I'm Jordan. I'm 14 years old, and I'm from a city called Waterford in Ireland. And I've been programming since I was 9. I used to play a game on the internet and saw that some of the users were making websites and blogs about it. So I thought that would be a fun hobby and a fun thing to do. And recently I've started a few companies as well.
Oh, my goodness. So, Jordan, can you say a little bit more about your companies?
So I run 2 companies now. One of them is called KC Games, and what that is an independent application development company. So I produce like mobile games for iPhone and Android. And my most recent company is called TeachWare, and that's an application for primary school teachers all over the world to manage all of their students' information in the cloud.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Jordan, how do you manage school and all this work?
It can be hard at times. Like, I think it's really important to have a balance. So, I'd go to school normally, and I'd study for a while, and then when I go home, I'd work on my businesses, and then on the weekends, I'd sort of take a break from everything, just to go out with my friends, play.
And balance is important. You have
to
have physical activity too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Not only brain activity.
Yeah.
So tell me about your future dreams.
I really want to continue in software and computers. I'd like to move to London when I get older. I think there's a really cool atmosphere there for startups. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, great. Well, best of luck. Best of luck. It's now time. Yes, another round of applause. And let's hand the microphone to Jack over here. This way, please. Give us a short presentation of yourself and your work.
So I'm Jack, and my story really began when I was 13, when a close family friend who was like an uncle to me actually passed away from pancreatic cancer. And when that happened, I did a bit of research on the cancer, and I found that 85% of all pancreatic cancers are diagnosed late, when someone has less than a 2% chance of survival. And our current method of detecting the cancer is a 60-year-old technique. I mean, first off, that's older than my dad. But also, it costs $800 per test and is grossly inaccurate, missing 30% of all cancers. So, armed with freshman biology, I decided to set out and change cancer diagnostics, a bit lofty of a goal, but I was going to do it. And after 7 months of research, I finally had an epiphany moment in my biology class. And essentially, I was reading an article on what are called single-walled carbon nanotubes. And these are long, thin tubes of carbon that are an atom thick, and they're 1/50,000th the diameter of your hair. So they're extremely small, and they have these amazing properties. They're kind of like the superheroes of material science. And then you have the special class of biomolecules called antibodies. And these are molecules that only react with one specific protein, in this case a cancer biomarker that I found that's called mesothelin. And mesothelin is your ordinary round-the-mill type protein, unless you have pancreatic, ovarian, and lung cancer, in which case it's found at these very high levels in your bloodstream. But also, the key is that it's found in the earliest stages of the disease, when someone has close to a 100% chance of survival. So essentially, by taking these antibodies to the cancer biomarker and weaving it into this network of nanotubes, you have a network that only reacts with one specific protein. But also, due to the properties of these carbon nanotubes, it will actually change its electrical properties based on the amount of protein present, and thus operates about the same as a glucose strip, but for pancreatic, ovarian, and lung cancer. And after getting into a lab, I got 199 rejections out of 200 emails, and then I went through this big interview at Johns Hopkins. And finally, 7 months later, I ended up with one small paper sensor that costs 3 cents and takes 5 minutes to run. This makes it 168 times faster, over 26,000 times as expensive, and over 400 times more sensitive than our current methods of detection, but also can detect the cancer in the earliest stage, when something has close to 100% chance of survival, and it has over 90% accuracy so far. So in the next 2 to 5 years, this patent-pending sensor could lift the once dismal pancreatic cancer survival rates from 5.5% to close to 100%, and would do similar for ovarian and lung cancer, but also potentially for any disease ranging from Alzheimer's to other forms of cancer, even HIV, AIDS, and heart disease.
Amazing. This is truly amazing. I'm sure everybody here is curious. When you first started, people in the science field of science must have been very reluctant as you got a lot of rejections. How did you continue pushing on? What gave you the strength?
So one of the main motivations throughout this project is there's the statistic in pancreatic cancer that 100 people die every single day. And so my motivation every single day was, how am I going to help save 100 lives? And so whenever I get down in the lab, I think, how am I going to help save those lives?
That's a very strong motivation. That's a great one. We'll ask more questions, of course. We'll talk more in the panel discussion later on in the program. But thank you very much. Let's now give the microphone to Alberto, all the way over here.
So my name is Alberto Elias. I started in computing when I was 10. When I moved back to Spain after living in England for 6 years, my parents bought me a new computer after having two that I inherited from my brother. And I just started playing with that a lot. And when I was 12, I got into programming. And finally, when I was 15, I had this strong ambition of building the largest tech company in the world when I was older. And my dad pushed me to start doing things when I was younger, in a way. So he told me that maybe if I could build a local group or something around technology. So I started doing this group. I was writing in one of the largest Android blogs in Spain. And in that way, I met someone who was organizing the Google developer group in Barcelona. So I ended up organizing the Google developer group in Murcia, where I come from. And that was a huge success. So this other group I was organizing too, I stopped organizing that and focused on this. And just like a month later, I met who was going to be the co-founder of my startup, Holalabs. So we started working on that when we were 15. We worked on 2 projects. One was to help developers build mobile apps based on websites. So with a very simple framework, they could build mobile apps in minutes. And then we also worked on this, what we call distributed desktop. It was a desktop where you have all the internet platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Gmail, calendars, anything, you name it, right on your desktop. So you open your computer and you could see what happened while you were away from the internet. And now I'm 18. I just moved to London. And I'm trying to work on a new project. I'm also a young advisor to Nearly Cruise. So I'm also focusing on that. So I'll be back in Brussels in 10 days for that. And yeah, that's me.
Terrific. So, Alberto, I'm curious, what kind of advice do you give to the commissioner?
We mostly focus on, well, it's a digital agenda, so it's obviously focused on tech. How to get more developers around Europe. One of our main initiatives is called Code Week. We did it for the first time last year, and we're doing it again this October, when we join all the developer events around Europe during this week. We try to get schools involved. We try to get all the developer groups all around Europe to hold developer events during that week to get people interested in development, to get people interested in technology. We focus on young people. We focus on women. We focus on senior people. We focus on people who have been developing for years. we just focus on technology there. And we also talk a lot about education, obviously. We need to improve education to get people interested in technology, so we talk a lot about that.
Terrific, terrific. Thank you. Elif, it's now your turn.
Okay. Hello, my name is Elif BILGIN, and I'm from Istanbul, Turkey. And like Katerina said, I won 2 awards at Google Science Fair in 2013. And my project is basically about making bioplastic out of banana peels. So the most common question I get when I tell people about my project is, why the banana peel and how did you come up with this? And why aren't we funding this already? So in Istanbul, we have what we call the Bosphorus, which is the part of the sea where Europe and Asia meet, and it is a really gorgeous place. And on Sunday mornings, my family and I actually go and have breakfast by the seaside. And one day I noticed that there were a lot of plastic bottles and plastic bags that were floating in the sea, and it was actually destroying the beautiful view. And I was very upset by this problem, so I wanted to research an alternative to this petroleum-based plastic, which was taking so long to actually get lost in the nature. And I was researching pollution in the seas. Well, I was searching for a solution to this problem, and I found out that bioplastics were created to actually be a solution to this problem. But I found out that the current methods to make bioplastics include the interior part of fruits and vegetables, which we actually eat, and this actually does more harm than good for us. And I wanted to use an organic waste material instead, so that I could actually recycle something and actually not cause harm to us. And I started to look into fruit peels, and I found the banana peel from this.
What a great story. Elif, was it difficult for you to gain trust and people sort of supporting you in this process, being so young?
Yeah, actually, yes, it was really hard because I started this project when I was 14. And, well, I had a really extremely basic knowledge of chemistry and everything. And even I didn't believe in myself that I could do anything like this. And after 2 years of experimentation, I actually built up my own confidence.
Now you know. Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Elif. Thank you. And I turn to the trio. I know you, Ciara, will speak for the three of you, Emer and your other colleague here, of course. Yes. You go ahead. You need a microphone. Sorry. Here we go.
Hi, first of all, I'm Ciara Judge and I'm from Ireland, and can we firstly, on behalf of my 2 teammates, Emer and Sophie, just sincerely thank the EU Commission for having us here today. I guess our journey started back in February 2012 when we decided to enter our national science competition, the BT Young Scientist. Now, from a young age, we had all had a massive interest in science, and we were just very curious about how the world works. At home one day, Emer was gardening with her mom, and she noticed these wart-like nodules on the roots of certain plants called, they were pea plants, I think, yeah. She brought them into her science teacher because she didn't know what they were and she thought the plants were diseased. And the science teacher told her about this bacteria called rhizobium. Now, rhizobium is a special type of bacteria that forms a symbiotic relationship with legume plants such as peas, beans, and clover. And in doing this, it'll assist their growth. But we decided to see what else it could do, and so we decided to look at its other potentials with crops such as cereal crops like wheat, oats, and barley. We found that by using this bacteria, we were able to increase to reduce the time taken for germination by 50%. And we also did some further field trials and found that on average, we were able to increase the crop yield by around 30%, and some of our results actually exceeded 70%. Now, these results have massive implications for example, farmers in the third world or agriculturalists or those in the food industry. And it also could possibly provide a partial solution for the food crisis that the world is currently facing. With this project, we won our national competition, the BT Young Scientist, and so we're given the honour of representing Europe in the EU contest for young scientists in Prague last September. This was an amazing experience, and we put in a lot of hard work throughout the summer months, improving our project. We actually collected a total of 100,000 data points, so that made our statistical analysis very strong. We then were awarded first place in the EU contest for young scientists, and this has given us many amazing opportunities. We visited the most fantastic people and places, and we certainly would not have been able to do this without the EU Young Scientist. So I guess our journey is just an example of one of the many journeys that young people are taking across the whole of Europe, because I think that as technology and science becomes more popular and the world begins to move a little bit faster, innovation is actually becoming the norm. And I believe that the young people of Europe are actually starting to notice that. And we're just an example of the many people who are carrying out work just as important as ours.
Thank you. Fantastic. Sophie, Ciara, and Emer, to be able to address the little, not so small, question of the famine and the food crisis in the world, that's fantastic. Where is your project now?
At the moment, we've just finished some field trials that have yielded really good results. And the best thing about this bacteria is it's completely natural. It's found in the soil. And there already is small quantities of this bacteria in the food we eat. So implementing this into agriculture and, say, to address the food crisis actually wouldn't be too difficult. There would be less hurdles, I guess, to overcome in implementing this because of the bacteria and it being so natural. So we're bringing it on now into further field trials because we just want to make sure that this is the best it can be before it goes into agriculture, because obviously food is it's very important to sustain human life, and we have to make sure that we're doing it right. And we also want to break it down to the very small level of in the tiny cells of the seeds, just to see. We want to know exactly what's happening, just to see if this bacteria could actually do more for beyond cereal crops, even in botany or in other crops. We want to just make sure that we know what's happening so that this bacteria can be brought further, because we believe that there's a lot of potential left in this particular strand of bacteria.
Thank you. We'll be hearing a lot more about this project, I'm sure. Thank you, Emer, Sophie, and Ciara. Let's now have a discussion here up in the panel. I know there's another microphone hidden here somewhere that you can have on this side of the Commissioner, and you have one that you can share. I know I will also soon be receiving an iPad that I could look at. Who has my iPad? Somebody will hand it over to me with the Twitter questions. The first question, what skills are needed for the new generation? And how can we best attract youngsters to science and entrepreneurship?
So probably going forward in the 21st century, some of the most important skills we're going to have to look at are computing, particularly just because everything is becoming an information technology. Particularly, we've seen this exponential rise in a bunch of different fields, and we're seeing, especially in biology, how you can start to program different organisms and make them do things that you want that they typically wouldn't do. But also, for example, just the whole app space, you're able to create all these amazing different tools there.
So you think this is something that will attract the younger generation in these fields? But can you explain more how that could happen? How do we invite young people?
So probably one of the greatest assets that we have towards getting more young people interested in programming and also other spaces is the whole maker movement, as this is a really easy introduction through tools such as Arduino and the Intel Galileo, and getting kids to learn how to do just the basics such that they can move on to their own independent studies, because science is something that you do, not something that you learn from a textbook. And so you need to get your hands dirty in order to actually learn and grasp the concepts.
Thank you, Jack. What do you say about this, Jordan?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Computing would probably be one of the main things that kids would need to learn for the future. I think a good way to sort of encourage them to get into it would be introducing it into the education system, like programming as well, because it's a really good way to be creative and there's a lot of jobs down that field as well. Yeah.
Alberto, when you started, did you get encouragement from your teachers? How did you get any backup from your surroundings?
I didn't get anything from school. Something I was curious about at home. They're interested in biology. He's interested in tech. It's just, well, people are interested in different things. And I was curious about technology, and I had this roadmap when I was younger. I would go to school, then I would go to college, then I would work in a big company, then build my own. And I ended up building my own when I was 15. So, society puts a very narrow road for people. And I know it's a cliche, but we need to get young people to think out of the box, to know that the road is actually much wider. You can do many things. You can do many things when we're young. And we need to let them know that, not just say you need to go to college, you need to do this, and then you need to build a family, have a relaxed life. No. We need to teach them to be happy, and you can be happy when you're young. You don't need to wait until you're 40 to be happy and anything.
That's certainly true. Any comments from the Commissioner on this?
I'm just interested, we're trying to do everything to encourage STEM education, so to get young people interested in science and technology and engineering and math. And it's an uphill battle for a lot of teachers because it's perceived as an area that's very difficult to get top marks in. And I think some young people, not the ones around us here, but some young people feel really challenged by that. So I'm interested if I could ask Jordan, for example, was there a moment when you were in school or when you were at home that, there was a spark, that something happened? Was it a combination of sort of support from your parents or support from teachers? And what would you say to the parents, and there are some of them sitting here, whose children spend all of their lives on either an iPhone or an iPad or, a laptop, and who feel that they're not thinking or they're not engaging in conversation?
I suppose that's kind of how I started as well. Like, my parents didn't really understand what I was doing when I was on the computer. So it took my teacher in 6th class to actually realize that I was creating things on the computer, and she taught my parents about it. So that's really how I got into it. Like, I wouldn't be anywhere without the support of my parents. So I think support from your parents is really, really important when it comes to this. So to parents out there who have their kids doing things on the computer and not really going outside, I think to encourage them, because you can be really, really creative on the computer, like with games, with creating apps and things like that. So I just say to encourage your children to do what they want to do.
Great. Alberto, you were in Murcia and you set up this technology group and then you left. What happens to that now? What happens to the group in Murcia? Can they survive without you? Can they get along without you? Or, because I sometimes think if you have somebody that has real creativity and they're lost, that creativity kind of goes with them and is lost to the other group.
Well, when you build a group or you build a company, that doesn't really last forever. So for the last year, I just made sure I had a few of the most active members. I made sure that they came on board of the organization, started learning how everything worked, how I was doing things, and just passed the organization to them. I'm still in contact with them. They know where I am and probably help out for a few months, and then they'll be on their own. It's normal nature of any kind of project.
I wanted to ask you about mentorship, sort of role models. Would you like to address that, Ciara?
Personally, in Ireland, role models are massively important, especially in our school. I mentioned earlier about our national competition, and firstly, we have a very active science teacher who's so dedicated, and so he encourages every student, as Alberto was saying, to think outside the box and to come up with these new ideas. There's also older students who have done science projects before, who have done coding before, are so eager to share their knowledge and share their enthusiasm with the younger students. And I think that is a key role, because success builds success. And if you see someone who you admire, or if you see someone older than you doing well in an area that you yourself are interested in, you will automatically look to them for advice or for support or for help. So I think, certainly from Ireland's point of view, mentoring is incredibly important.
Thank you, Ciara. How about you, Jack? Did you have any special mentors?
Yeah, so one of the greatest things about being in Baltimore is that you have Johns Hopkins, which is, of course, a really great medical institute. However, one of the greatest problems I faced in getting into a lab was all of the professors thought, oh, this kid's 14. But also, since I was 14, if I was being paid in a lab, that would be considered child labor. So that made things difficult. However, they kind of snuck me in a back door by making me a volunteer, and it was really covert, which was interesting. But I think that we have to show the scientific community that's established that kids are able to do great things. I mean, kids are this epitome of creativity and knowledge, where we have enough creativity to come up with these wild ideas, yet we have enough knowledge to really breathe life into them. And I think by letting the scientists see that, then we can get a lot better mentors and also have better collaborations, because between the old and the new, we can make great things happen.
Jack, was it ever a time where you were considered a threat, being so young and being so ambitious and having such a strong idea?
So the medical field, there are some interesting egos in there, but I mean, I have gotten a few articles written about me saying this kid is a terrible person, but you generally just shrug those off. I mean, there's always going to be those people that really don't like young people getting trying to kind of steal the limelight from them, especially in medicine. However, I think the vast majority of researchers really do want to help the young generation.
Well, let's hope so, indeed. Let's ask Elif, obstacles. What obstacles did you encounter in your journey towards all these awards and successes?
Well, like I said, I completed my project over 2 years, and I did the whole project in my parents' kitchen. So, yeah, I didn't have a lab environment. I had access to a lab, but the lab didn't have the stuff I needed, because I actually need a big, normal oven to bake the plastic in. And I actually need a hand blender and everything. So I couldn't use a lab either. And that was a major obstacle, because I had to be up all day in the kitchen, and then I had to clean it up because we had to eat breakfast on the table that I worked on. And also, well, dipping your mom's, precious ceramics in hydrochloric acid is not a really good way to, have a hygienic meal later on. And yeah, that was the most challenging obstacle I had, basically.
But now your research will be able to have
yeah, definitely, yeah.
better circumstances.
Yeah.
So no more Mama's kitchen.
Yeah, for now.
For now. At least not for bioplastic.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of your banana peel plastics, and you mentioned to me earlier that they stay intact for quite a long time. They have not dissolved or disintegrated.
Yeah, for example, I applied to Google Science Fair last May, 2013.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
this is my bioplastic, by the way. I can make it in different colors and shapes, etc. Anyway, I made my... yeah, it's a funny story, actually. I made the first batch of successful plastic during around October in 2013. And then I applied to Google Science Fair in May. But I was browsing through last year's competition winners and finalists' projects. And I was so discouraged because they were so awesome and my project sounded so lame to me that I actually threw the plastic away.
Oh, dear.
So in June, they announced that I was one of the 90 finalists. And then a week later, I was one of the 15 finalists. And I was like, oh my God, I need plastic to show at the exhibition hall. And then I made a new batch of plastics that month, and they've still been intact since that day. And yeah, they're still really strong.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. We did mention before a little bit about the school system. I wanted to go back to that a little bit more in detail. What are the improvements that we need in the educational system? Maybe in teaching methods to promote more entrepreneurship and combined with science.
Okay. Well, the most important thing for me is that I think some students who have set a specific course load in their minds should be able to specialize at an early age. For example, in a hypothetical situation, for example, they could be introduced to all courses in the 9th grade, and then they can be able to pick any classes they want to take in the 10th grade and so on. For example, I'm an IB student, and my school is one of the few schools who offer IB. And I was able to pick my own classes from the 10th grade. I take a more scientific, like a heavier science side in my course. Like every student in the whole class has to take one science course, but I take 2 high-level science classes, which allows me to actually focus on my scientific side more. But some students are able to pick, I don't know, economy or arts, and I know a lot of people who are extremely talented, but like some of my friends who can actually have like a real potential in the arts have to take a really high and hard level math course, and they're not meant for that. They don't want to take that class, but they have to, and I think this is a really big waste of time for them. And we need to fix this problem more than anything.
Would the Commissioner like to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that the young people here around us are the people who understand technology and the technologies of the future. I can work an iPhone, I can work an iPad, I can't code, for example. So you're the future, and you're the people who are going to determine what that future is going to be for all of us. So you're talking today to policymakers like me, but also from different countries in Europe. You're talking to academics. You're talking to a lot of professors from universities and so on. You're talking to a lot of teachers. If there was one thing, and I'm going to ask each of you, if there was one thing that you would suggest to all of us to move from where we are now into technology, into innovation and science for young people, what would that be? Let's start with Jack.
So my recommendation is kind of twofold. The first part of it is that my belief is that each student is an individual. So in the United States, we have this thing called individual education programs, but they're only for students who have mental disabilities. But if each student is an individual, shouldn't we all have individual education programs tailored to our specific needs? And then secondly, in order to get more kids into science and math, I believe that if I was a teacher, I would just cram my curriculum in classroom with as many different pieces of equipment as possible so kids would be able to do that independent research. Because independent research is how you do science. I mean, curiosity, that's what science is, the pursuit of knowledge. And I think we have to show kids that rather than what we've been showing them, which is just this kind of like bulimic almost education system where you just take in a lot of facts and then puke them up on the test. I mean, that's just not really good teaching of science.
So more hands-on work in the classroom.
Precisely.
Thank you.
And Alberto?
So to say something different, I would speak about the homework load, for example. How do you expect children to start building their own projects at home or to actually investigate, innovate, etc., if they have to spend the whole afternoon, whole night doing homework, learning things by heart, which they'll forget in 3 months. So I think that's something we really need to look into. When I started organizing this, one of my ways to organize myself to be able to do everything, I did my homework right before the teacher came into the classroom, because if not, I didn't have time to do anything. And I learned my exams the night before the exam, because if not, I didn't have time to do anything. So we really need to look into that. I spent my last year of high school and the end of the year before without sleeping much, because I really didn't have time. And if you're not sleeping well, you don't live as well and you don't think as much. So I think that's a pretty important thing to focus on.
Yeah, I'd sort of go back onto the programming part. Like, I think it's really, really important that the computing gets introduced into the education system a lot more. Because in my school, personally, like, we have this really state-of-the-art computer room, but all we learn is Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, and things like that. And
too basic.
Like, yeah, it's sort of really basic, and it's really kind of only it's the teacher. Like, I don't know how I'd say it. It's just like the kids would usually have more knowledge than the teacher, and a lot of the teacher in computing. And I think that teachers could find that very intimidating when it comes to, like, when the student knows more about a certain subject. So I think, like, programming should be introduced, and I think it would be really, really important again. Yeah.
Just one more follow-up question to Jordan about the teacher being less skilled in the field of programming. How could you work around that so it's not really a problem?
Well, I think it could just be like hiring maybe a programmer, or getting new teachers in that have experience in programming, like specific IT teachers. Because that's another thing in my school. All the IT teachers teach something different as well. So IT isn't like their main sort of subject. So I think hiring specific IT teachers would be good as well.
Like a guest lecturer, more or less, coming in.
Yeah, something like that.
High-end profile. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I agree with Jack's opinion on increasing the amount of hands-on activities in class. And, well, actually, for students to actually achieve something in that kind of classroom, I think the most important thing that they should have is to be encouraged to think independently and creatively. For example, in a classroom where you propose an idea which is out of the box and sounds kind of crazy, not crazy, but like so innovative that people find it strange, you would probably get mocked, for example. That's what happens in high school classes in my school. Because if I were to tell a person that I'm going to make bioplastic out of banana peels, they would say something like, don't you have any time for doing something else? Or like, are you crazy? Why would you worry on that? And, well, the most important thing is that the students should feel safe in the environment to share opinions and, yeah, to have feedback on their opinions in a safe and calm environment. And that can only be achieved by the teachers' opinions.
Thank you, Elif.
Ciara? Or Emer?
Yeah, well, I think that teachers and parents and everyone really needs to believe more in the younger generation. I mean, when people are younger, they have more of an open mind, really. There's not so much negativity. And I think I'm very lucky to go to a school, we're all very lucky to go to a school where we're encouraged to take part in science and do what I suppose we kind of want in science. But I know many people, many friends around the country who I suppose no one believes that they can actually do anything. They're given a textbook, they're told, learn this, write it down. And I think they just, more belief that we can do a lot more than what we are doing now, and I suppose more advanced at a young age.
Thank you, Emer. Thank you.
I started life as a teacher a long, long time ago, and I had 63 four-year-olds in the first class that I taught. I don't think, probably innovation might have helped, but I felt, I think, like a glorified babysitter for most of the time. Mm-hmm. I'm totally and absolutely intimidated, can I say, by all of you. By your knowledge, by how confident you are, by how you can stand up to all of us and say, this is what needs to be done and you need to do it now. And I think if we could take one thing away, or certainly if I can take one thing away from this session today, it is just that as policymakers, as whether we're in a member state or in the European Union, as parents, as grandparents, because I am a grandparent now, that we need to look very differently at how we educate and stimulate. and how we need to listen to what young people want. And, you know, whether that's in the area of health, the area of the bioeconomy, whether it's in technology, whatever area it might be in, I think there's a huge amount that we can take away and that we need to learn. And we have to challenge ourselves. And I always think I know it all, and of course I know nothing at the end of the day. And young people, like all of you, I think have a real job to do as role models for other young people, your own age and younger, to encourage them to, as you said, step out of the box. So I'm hugely impressed, and I think, you know, Generation Z knows about all of these things. You can code, you can understand everything that's going on in a piece of technology, where old people like me are just looking at it and wondering, if I press a button, is it going to wipe everything that's on the memory, for example. You know, it's as basic as that for me. I think it's just incredible what these young people have done, and they're only a representative group of what other wonderful young people are doing all around the world.
Amazing. When you are being patronized, if you are, here some of you have been, patted on the head, could you give any good advice to parents, teachers, and maybe even younger representatives watching this later on the web? What do you do? How do you sort of release yourself from this patting on the head approach? What could you say to sort of alleviate that from your situation?
I think we're finding a recurring theme here. Young people need to step outside the box. But I actually think the problem is that when young people step outside the box, because we see it all the time, even in our own school, young people step outside the box, they're patted on the head, they're said, oh, that's brilliant, look what you've done, back to school. Like, young people, when they do step outside the box, they should be encouraged to stay outside the box, completely break out of it, and keep moving forward. I think that's how people should be rewarded, not with, oh, well done, now back to school. It should be, oh, well done, what are you doing next? If you do something, if you do, for instance, a science project like we've all done, like that potential should be recognized and utilized. It shouldn't be, oh, isn't she great? She's done a science project. Isn't she great? What else can she do? How can we help her to move forward? Or him, sorry, all for equality in science. Like, it's all about moving forward. That's what innovation's about. So I think that when people do step outside that box, they should not only be praised, they should be encouraged to stay outside that box and move forward, to keep questioning the norms and to keep striving for success.
Thank you, Ciara. In a sense, you're all entrepreneurs, all of you sitting here. How do we encourage more entrepreneurship among the younger generation? Is that something you are encouraged in school, to become entrepreneurs? Or do you even address this title, this sphere of the workplace? I'm looking at Alberto over there, because I know you are definitely an entrepreneur.
I think the main thing that moves an entrepreneur forward, it's passion for what they're doing. So I think getting young people into entrepreneurship, the best way would be to help them find their passion. At least in Spain, what I've seen, I finished high school last May, so that was like the moment when people go to university. I saw all my friends, or at least a lot of them, they had no idea what they wanted to do with their lives. It was the point where they actually, you have to make a big decision, and they weren't ready for it. They don't really know what they like. So I think that would be a really big problem that we should really look into, how to get young people to find their passion. And I think many of the things we've been talking about, helping people think out of the box, getting their hands dirty with science and other things, that would actually get people the feeling of what they're doing, and that would probably help, yeah.
Yeah, and also in our school we've got courses where we're put together and we're like, okay, you make an idea and you can make a business around that idea. We have this, it's Transition Year course, and I think this would be really beneficial maybe for other students as well. We're put into a group of like 5 people with our friends, and you have to make up a product or an idea and then build that up. So we learn how to think up different ways. We learn how to maybe pitch our product to judges in different science fairs or business fairs that we go to, and we learn different roles in a business, and then we learn how to bring on and learn finances of the business and learn how to finance our product and where to get different things to build our product and to make it better. I think these courses are really, really beneficial to students, especially at our age, for later on in life, because they are you're going to learn things and you're going to use these type of things later on in life. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you. What can you do, Commissioner, to facilitate even more inventions from this generation?
Well, I think on the education, the Commission can do very little because while we run a very successful program called Scientix for science teachers, where we give a lot of support and so on, as regards the educational program itself or the curriculum, that's in the hands of the member states. So the Minister for Education in each country is responsible for developing what the curriculum should be. I think we have to be far more innovative, and if, maybe one of the things that could be done in each of the member states is that they bring together young people like what we have today and have this discussion around what can help in what needs to be changed. I started off in education with all of the desks looking forward at the teacher, bringing those who were fidgety in class up to the front row, doing all those conservative things that nowadays you wouldn't dream of. You'd never go into a school classroom now, whether it's in primary school or in a second level school, that there wouldn't be a hum of activity in the classroom. So I think maybe that would be an idea for Ministers for Education to do. I also think we need strong support for teachers, because I also think that teachers feel that in their own training, professional training, that they are not trained to deal with the new economy that's out there, with the new ideas that are coming from very self-confident young people. And teachers want to help to bring you through, and they want to help you to think outside the box, and they want to support what you're doing. One of the things for me that would be interesting is that either Ciara, Sophie or Emer might say, what happened to your project since you won the European Young Scientist? Did an agri-food company come and talk to you? Did the Department of Agriculture come and talk to you? Did anybody come and talk to you about how you could roll this out, as it were, particularly in an era when we have a huge problem with food security?
Well, so far, honestly, not. I don't think any company has gotten in contact with us, apart from Teagasc, which is a research centre in Ireland, and we visited there. But I think for us to really bring this into commercial use, we'll have to do a lot more work on it. Because there's always a fear around anything with food, really. The amount of people that have asked us, are we genetically modifying the seeds? We're not. We're not doing that. But there's still a fear around putting a bacteria on a seed, even though this bacteria is already there. It's just us putting it on basically at an earlier stage. So I think we'll have to do more work, and hopefully we can commercialise it, because we feel that it could really make a difference.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask Jack something? Because one of the things that we learn as we go, particularly to the United States, is that in Europe, first of all, as you heard this morning, there is tremendous support for research and innovation. 30% increase in our budget at a time when every other area of the budget was being reduced, at a time when we were going through a huge economic crisis. When I go to the United States, all I hear is that the budget for science is being cut all the time. What effect does that have down as you go down to college, primary schools, teachers, and so on? And is that a drawback?
That is a gigantic drawback, especially you can just see it in the professional science world when you're applying for a grant. In an already cutthroat sphere where people would sabotage experiments and such in order to get a grant, and then you cut that even further, such that only 7% of grants applied get money. I mean, think of all the possible breakthroughs we're throwing away there. And think of all the unnecessary shutdowns we're having. I mean, I was recently reading how some really promising research on stem cells for cancer therapy got shut down actually last week. I mean, it's ridiculous how undervalued science is in the United States. We really need to make this a giant priority there because we're a nation founded on science. We're a world founded on science. I mean, what would the pop culture stars and sports icons be without a medium to disseminate their knowledge, without the TV or radio to let the mass media take hold? I mean, nerds and geeks are the ones who run the world, not pop stars.
Let's now take some questions from you in the audience. We'll have somebody move with a microphone. So please just put your hand up if you'd like to pose a question. Could we have somebody move over with the microphone? I'll take the iPad. Thank you. And please, if you can, stand up and state your name and where you're from.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I come from Spain, from Madrid University. And actually, I come from the dreadful system of education. One of my missions is to train teachers. And actually, I wanted to meet Alberto because I would like to listen to him. And I'd like to hear his advice on a new project we are involved in, which is try to connect faculties of education across Europe, try to make teachers more listeners, more creative, so that they can promote youngsters like you, so that rather than homework and rather than a curriculum which has been already set years ago, so somehow foster your potential, promote it, enhance it, and so that's what we are intending to do now. So that's why I do need your advice, and we need to listen to you. So the only thing I would say is that there is hope for change, modification, innovation. So thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments from Alberto on this one?
Well, obviously, any project like this is very interesting. We need more of them. We need to get people around Europe connected. Right now, the best thing we have for students is the Erasmus program, which unluckily is receiving some cuts. Sorry. At least in Spain, the Erasmus program is the first time that loads of Spanish people actually go out to Spain and open their minds to other countries. So I think that's very important. So yeah, connecting around Europe is very great. It's great. We need to get teachers learning how to teach innovation, learning how to listen to students properly. Of course, that's great, and we definitely need more things like that.
Thank you. We have a question from the lady up front.
Hi, my name's Anne-Marie Maffedon. I actually run an organisation that Commissioner is familiar with. And can I say how I love the whole panel as a whole, but the four girls that we have on the stage have been incredible. You've represented the gender very well, and I'm very, very proud to have you here and to hear all the comments that you've made. So my question is for the four girls, and it's about your peers and the others that are around your age. There are not many girls that are doing what you're doing, not many girls of your age that are doing what you're doing. So what has the response been from them? So from the peers within your school, within Ireland, perhaps, and maybe even some of the boys as well. What's their response been to the work that you guys are doing?
Thank you. I need the hand microphone over here, please. Thank you.
So in our school, science, there's a split gender mix in our school for science. But when we came back after winning our national competition, the girls in our year, they were so happy for us. They were really, really happy for us and excited that we had come so far. And actually this year we noticed there is an even more girls entering our national competition this year because they'd seen us, and especially girls that are our friends, they'd go in groups and we actually had, I think we had more girls than boys actually entering our national competition this year, which is really, it's amazing really, because usually you'd see more boys entering than girls because it was science was seen as something boys would do. I mean, why would girls do science? Which is completely wrong, and it's changed dramatically now. There's even the Science It's a Girls Thing initiative, which is great for saying, girls, you can do this. Girls, it isn't just for boys, you know? I think it's amazing, and definitely in our school, more girls have participated in science than boys even.
So now you're the role models.
I guess so.
Not bad. Another question over here?
Thank you. My name is Erin Meyer, and I'm the founder of the School of Intuition, which is, I believe that we all have, and each of you have shown this morning, how important we have the knowledge within ourselves and to pursue what we want to pursue. Alberto, you were talking about how important it is for us to identify our passions and the importance of the support of our parents in helping us and our educators in helping us pursue those passions. I believe that we're all capable of creating our own stories and listening to the stories from the past and how they open up our minds to see what's possible for our future. And so my question to you, to any of you, is really, what were some of were you inspired by role models from other people from the past to help you pursue and to give you that confidence to say, I've got this idea and I'm really going to try it out. I've got this idea that maybe banana peels can be made into plastics, and I'm going to ask my mom to use her oven and her kitchen table.
Who would like to answer this? Jack? No? Elif? No? Emer. Thank you, Emer.
For me personally, before entering the BT Young Scientist or national competition, I had no real belief that I was good at science or that I could achieve anything that we have achieved. And I think role models was really important to me because I think seeing someone else doing something and becoming successful really, told me I could do it. So looking at all the past winners of our national competition, I think initially I would have thought they must be really, really smart people. And then as I got to know them, I realized that they're just normal people like everyone else. And I think that I was really inspired by that as I got to know that really you don't have to be an absolute genius to achieve what you want to achieve.
Thank you, Emer. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? One over here from the gentleman in the back.
My name is John Richardson. I have 4 granddaughters, and I'm interested in their education. They live in the UK, where it seems to me the educational system is moving more and more towards standards applied at all levels of the school, testing to those standards, and the success of the schools and of the teachers and of the children is judged only on those standards. Isn't that strengthening the box and making it more and more difficult to think outside the box?
Who would like to comment on this? Jack? No? Elif.
So if I'm not wrong, I have some teachers from the UK, and they told me that the IB system and a similar system like that is very common in the UK. And, I think that that system is the closest to we have come in education, which is of good quality. Because, for example, in my school we take IB, but in Turkey our Ministry of Education does not allow us to only take IB because it doesn't include the Turkish curriculum inside it. So I have to take Turkish classes and IB on top of that. But if I were to take IB only, which is what is the case in most schools in the UK, I think. I'm not sure. Okay, sorry. My teacher told me that they have a similar system like that. And, in the system that I'm affiliated with, I found out that the students are more pushed towards individual thinking, but they don't actually achieve it completely because, for example, they are pushed to thinking about creating their own experiments, designing their own experiments in the sciences, but they don't, for example, the learning part of the course is all cookie cutter for everyone else. Everyone takes the same education, but yeah, to the extent of designing your own labs and stuff, you don't get much further than that. I think this is a problem that should be addressed.
Thank you, Elif. Jack wanted to comment on this. And then we'll take a Twitter question.
So in the United States, standardized testing is particularly bad with initiatives such as No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top, really vigorously beating out the potential for any creativity or any independence in creating a curriculum whatsoever. I mean, teachers must get that because their salaries depend on it. And I don't think that numbers and our ability to fill in and write pretty essays really captures a student's ability to succeed. A student's creativity and intellect cannot be measured by our ability to answer which of these 4 bubbles is it. I think that's just ridiculous to simplify it like that. And also, through these, we place gross emphasis on 2 fields, math and English. There's more to life than math and English on the SAT. You might not need to know what lugubrious means in order to be successful. I think that we need to create more realistic tests if we're going to have them, and also place less of an emphasis on them.
Thank you, Jack. Let's take a question from Twitter from somebody called Ewan Dannyfield, who writes, Steve Jobs started in a garage. Elif BILGIN started in her mother's kitchen. But how important is collaboration? How do you find peers, partners at your age? It's an interesting question. You obviously did.
Personally, our Young Scientist project also started in our kitchen. Even the initial brainstorming, we got down a piece of plywood from the attic and used it as a whiteboard. Then we upscaled a little bit and we actually, we got a room in the house, a whole room all to ourselves. My mom wasn't very happy about it, unfortunately, as it was her guest room. After we won our national competition, we did get a bit of interest from industries and stuff like that, but we weren't given the proper support that I feel like we needed. We were so lucky. In our area, we have a pharma company called Eli Lilly, and they gave us support. They allowed us to use one of their machines, but really, our project is still in that room. And I think that like industries need to kind of catch on a little bit and see, okay, this person has won a competition. Can we help them? Can we? I mean, we've gotten donations of equipment, but we're still in this room, and I feel like it's time for us to kind of move out of that room. And we need help from that. Like, we need a boost.
Good. I'd now like to ask the Commissioner to give concluding remarks of this session. We're running at the end of our schedule today.
When we started to work on the second Innovation Convention, we first of all looked at the lessons that we had learned from the first one. And at the first one, we had very exciting speakers, just as we have for this one. But there was one element that was missing, and that was the young element, Generation Z. And we said, is there a way that we can involve them, that we can learn from them, that we can listen to them, and that they can teach us a lot? And we decided we should take a risk and have a session like this. And it's always risky, I can tell you, for a policymaker to sit down with a lot of young people who have very bright ideas, who are 10 times or 100 times more intelligent than she is, and who are very self-confident in coming forward. But we said it was something that was really worthwhile doing. And it's something that I would love, as a result of this Innovation Convention, that this would happen in each of the member states, where policymakers, particularly education ministers, would sit down with young people like you and learn what needs to be changed in the education system. And I think if we could get that as a result from our session here this morning, it would have been incredibly worthwhile. I want to thank each of the young people who were brave enough to come here and face all of us, and who gave us an incredible amount of knowledge and insight into how they started, how they got their ideas, how they developed their ideas. And certainly for me personally, I will watch with great interest the careers of all these young people, because there is no doubt about it, we have the likes of the Steve Jobs of the future sitting around us here, and while our futures are in their hands, I think it's very safe. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you from me too, of course. Let's now all go home and tap into the innovation power of this wonderful generation. Another round of applause. All of you. Thank you.